everyone, my name is Kamshai Video. Today our team 1 is pleased to present an analysis of change that happened in GK Printer Limited, a small family-run company. We are considering the rationale and the system of change through the lens of 7 questions. The first question is about the reason why GK want to change and how the change would affect organizational effectiveness. In general, there are many reasons why companies want to change, such as marketing competition, consumer behavior, income, or company structure. According to Husinski and Buchanan, disorganizing factors that negatively affect the company are called triggers for change, which will make the company's system structure no longer effective. And these triggers can be categorized into 2 parts, which are external and internal factors. From the GK case study, external factors are increasing market competition and customer printing consumption, which consumers want to cut down the printing cost by reducing the printing orders and also starting using in-house printing. The internal factors are inefficient system and imbalanced working, which means a backlog of design work and underworked printers in the GK procedure. And these factors affect reduced revenue of GK. So, in parts of the plans proposed by marketing and design manager, the critical points of plan will focus on reducing the costs, increasing service efficiencies, and also hiring more design staff to make the procedure more efficient and to balance the work in each department reasonably. So for the next question, I'm pleased to introduce Mr. Hafiz to present the answer of question 2. Thank you.
Thank you, Kamshai. So the second question was, what is the focus of GK? Is it individual, groups, or is it system change? So GK realized there were change in the consumer behavior and they were losing the competitive advantage. Looking at the framework of the change, the GK position is somewhere around Q3 and Q2 in terms of the market condition. The GK's business environment is starting to get turbulent because the consumer demand lower cost of printing, but the order volume is also decreasing and competitions get fiercer with other printing companies. So GK feels the urge to start the change to mitigate this point quickly. So the change proposed by the marketing and design manager can be seen to be more focused on system because it more focused on how to make the whole printing process more smoothly and faster. It characterized by root cause analysis of what is the main problem of current printing process and found the delay in the design process as the main problem. The purpose of bringing new design staff is to increase the effectiveness of the system so company can reduce the whole printing process and ultimately using it to regain their one-off competitive advantage. It highlights on how the improvement of the design procedures which part of the printing process in GK. Thank you.
Thank you, Hafiz. Was GK ready for change? Although GK was aware of their external and internal context as far as understanding the customer new demands, that competition was gaining market share, and the fact that the organization had a focus on system change, we agree that GK was not ready for change. For an organization to be ready for change, it is imperative that they follow an assessment of readiness for change, which goes through evaluating the different forces that affect the organization. As we can see on the field force analysis of Lewin's field theory, there are driving forces to change and there are restraining forces to change within an organization. The driving forces to change can come from the management, which is driving the change, and the restraining forces can come from individuals or groups within the organizations. If those forces are not in balance, there is a chance that change will not happen, as the organization will possibly be finding resistance from the individuals or groups within the organization as far as the process of change. If the forces are unbalanced, looking at the Quober-Ross change curve, we can do a severity impact. How is this change going to affect the individuals and groups? In the case of GK, with the disequilibrium between the forces of change, we can see the individuals and groups within a chaos phase. The groups don't identify themselves with the way the change agent wants to take change in the company. The marketing and design manager has proposed a strategy which the printing manager and other elements of the process of change don't agree with. And this is blocking GK from going to an action phase and into a performing phase as far as the strategy and vision they have for the organization. So with that, we believe the disequilibrium that exists within the field forces in GK, it's impeding them from going forward with change.
Thank you, Duva. Now we will look at why there was resistance to the change and what caused it. One of the prime reasons for the resistance was unilateral process. Only one manager was asked to find out a solution to the problem by the managing director without considering the opinions of other department managers. Likewise, marketing and design manager also did not consult the other manager during the process and tried to find out a solution on his own. This disconnect led to an increased resistance. The second reason for this resistance was misunderstanding. The lack of communication led to misunderstanding, which is considered to be one of the sources of resistance to the change. No knowledge was shared with the various department managers, hence they could not understand the valid reason behind the change, and this had a negative impact on the outcome. The third reason for the resistance was readiness for change. The change can bring either positive or negative outcomes. The balance of an outcome depends on the readiness or resistance to the change. The readiness is enhanced if people understand the need for change. However, in this case, people were not consulted in the process of finding solution, and this adversely affected their readiness for change. The fourth reason for this resistance was difference of opinion. The printing manager in the past had already asked for new printing equipment, but his attempts were not successful. The marketing and design manager's solution of adding new staff in design team was not aligned with the printing manager's thoughts. This naturally created a resistance, particularly from the printing manager due to difference of opinion. Having looked at the reason for resistance, I will now hand over to my colleague Kyle to answer the next question.
Thanks, DT. So how did GK go about planning commitment for the change? So through our analysis, there seems to be a glaring lack of GK's ability to gain commitment for change throughout the company, and they've not sufficiently gained consensus for this change. This is highlighted by the printing manager's reluctance to agree on the new direction, and it displays that simply assigning a change agent in this case would not suffice in order to gain traction to implement the change. Furthermore, as outlined by Beckert and Harris, there was a lack of planning in regards to establishing the changes that were desired. There wasn't no target individuals or groups identified as necessary to gain commitment, and the critical mass needed for change, and also a plan in which to assess the entire organization's willingness for change was not identified. There was also a significant lack of concrete plan to be adopted in which to ensure that the change was implemented properly, nor a plan in which to monitor the actual progress. We see the decision for the change, of course, comes from the top down in a Taylor or Fordism style in this case. However, due to factors such as perceived negative outcomes or lack of understanding the entire situation, it seems to have resulted with employees feeling of being swept away regarding the previously valued ways of doing things, traditions, familiar surroundings, and relationships. As outlined in Lewin's model for change, the company GK seems to have been stuck in the unfreezing stage, in a sense, even before they were able to implement the change, and also begin then with the refreezing process. So therefore, there was a significant reason for the lack of success for this new plan, and it would seem to lie within GK's inability to gain commitment and by thoroughly explaining the situations and the benefits of the proposed changes to their employees. And now I go to Mike for the next question.
Okay, thank you, Kyle. So now let's go to talk about the question 6. Who is the change agent? So in this case, we can see the manager, director should be the change agent. As he realized the issues and also the problems from the internal and external analysis in the company, the managing director would like to change and solve the problems, and he signed the marketing and design manager to identify the main problems and also find out the solutions. But however, the marketing and the design manager is responsible to survey and also find out the actual problem and come out with a solution, but without consulting with other department manager. This decision make the resistance of other departments, especially the managers from printing departments. The managing director would like to apply his transformational leadership style on his managing team, but his lack of thinking from all perspectives brought him into the problem where he was accused by other departments managers and was misunderstood. So the manager doesn't appear have appropriate skills such as the ability to prioritize, the ability to build a relationship, the strong communication skills, and also good people skills to solve problems, even to lead a change in the company. Now we'll pass the next topic question to Lindsay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. The final question we're considering is whether GK Printing is a company which is characterised by incremental, punctuated or continuous change, and what the magnitude of that change is. Incremental change, according to Parsons and traditional assumptions, note that large-scale change occurs gradually in tiny increments, but it's slow and can lead to strategic drift. Continuous change is ongoing and evolving and seen not as a burden, but a way of life. The organisation is dynamic and driven by organisational instability, alert to constant contingencies. The danger is, if all members of the organisation are not alert and working in a dynamic way, change not only stops, but it's difficult to identify what is required. The punctuated equilibrium model of change, as we see in Burns, shows that the organisations evolve through relatively long periods of stability, equilibrium periods, in their basic patterns of activity that are punctuated by relatively short bursts of fundamental change, revolutionary periods. If you look at Lewin's planned change model within that framework, then you can consider that the organisation goes along their period of stability, then in the revolutionary period, this equilibrium is unfrozen, the changes are made, and then refrozen for a new set of norms. The second part of the question asks what the magnitude of change is. There are 3 levels and definitions of magnitude: incremental changes, transformational changes, or, as we see in the case of GK printers, transitional changes. These involve moving from one state of operating to another. Organisational changes in this category include such things as reorganisations, moves, personnel changes, or as an example of GK printers, the introduction of new business models or processes, whereby the suggestion is to introduce additional personnel into the design stage to unblock the pinch point and allow work to continuously flow to the printing department. It is a moderate change and not disruptional, but has the capacity to have a major impact on the business. Thank you. I'd like to hand over to Duarte to conclude.
Having gone through GK's case study, we could conclude that the process of change of an organization is far from simple and linear. It goes through a set of processes from choice, trajectory, and change itself. Looking at GK in their internal and external context, they were losing revenue and market share, which led the organization to have an operational process focus to increase their efficiency. The managing director of GK had a vision of seeking the change they needed, which led the marketing and design manager to suggest a strategy for them to increase their efficiency through increasing people in the design team, with the objective of reducing the pinch point between design and printing. But however, the planning and people company of the process of change were not aligned between themselves, which hindered the change trajectory sought by GK. Thank you.